My name is Taneja and you're watching Brain Security. We're on day 3 of the Advent of Cyber by TryHackMe, and today's room is Splunk Basics. Did you see? So this room is listed medium. That means some sort of background knowledge would be great for you. So before beginning, I will give you some theoretical knowledge that will help you understand this topic better. So first of all, what is SIEM? It stands for Security Investigation and Event Management. So these tools basically help a security professional to do less laborious work and automate processes. What does Splunk do? You can think of it as a Google for your logs. Now, what is a log? If you don't think about security for a while and try to relate it to your real life, a log, you can say something like a diary. If you want to write something about your day in a book, you would write everything related to events that happened. So for computers, whatever events that happens in a computer, you log them down in log. Yeah, that is the bird eye view of Splunk and log. Now Splunk uses something called SPL. So what it does is it first loads itself with all the data in various format. You can also manually enter them, and you can easily search through the log, filter it. That makes your work easier. So in this particular room, we will see some basics of Splunk, and it is a very crucial tool in security profession. And some learning objectives, we will come to the story later, are learning objectives are ingest and interpret custom log data in Splunk, create and apply custom field extractions, and use search processing language to filter and refine search results. Yes, I think we are good to go, and let us start with the room. Okay, so this story goes like it's almost Christmas in Wareville, and the team of the best festival company is busy preparing for the big celebration. Everything is running smoothly until the SOC dashboard flashes red. A ransom message suddenly appears. Attack 1000 HopSec coins for McSkidy, or Sockmas ends tonight. The jealous ruler of HopSec Island, who's tired of Easter being forgotten, he sent his bandit bunnies to attack TBFC's system and turn Christmas into his new holiday, Eastmas. Okay, so now we got better context of the story. With McSkidy missing and network under attack, TBFC SOC team will utilize Splunk to determine how the ransomware infiltrated the system and prevent King Malhare's plan from being compromised before Christmas. These were the learning objectives, and we can start the machine. But I will read some part first, then I will start the machine because we only get 1 hour because of the free tire, and sometimes it is not enough for me. Okay, first topic is exploring the logs. In Splunk instance, the data has been pre-ingested for us to investigate the incident on the Splunk interface. We click on search and reporting on the left panel as shown below. The next page, okay, this over here, index means what usually how we think of index is that it is probably numbered. But index in Splunk is just like a folder. Index means you are in the main folder, and the index has all the logs that we have ingested or gonna put it in future. Type this in the search bar to show all investigated logs. Note that we will need to select all time as the time frame from the drop down on the right of the search bar. I think we need to provision the machine. I just use the browser version because I like the split screen setup, or it's just easier. Two data sets are as follows. Web traffic contains everything firewall shows allowed and blocked. The local IP assigned to the web server is this. Let's explore the logs, investigate the attack on our servers to identify the culprit. The initial triage. Start basic search across the index using your custom source type web traffic using the following query. Okay, source type is web traffic because we found out there are two data sets available. Splunk Enterprise. Okay, we're gonna check it. Okay, we are now in search and reporting, and over here we will see index is equals to mean. Matching down here. No results found. Okay, last 24 hours. Yes, we have to do all time. And then, okay, yes, we did get the logs. Now imagine manually have to read all this and try to understand. You would just go crazy because there are thousands of processes running at the same time on a particular machine. You cannot manually do this. You do need such SIEM tools or tools to help you out. Okay, we are over here. Then index main, we go to source type over here, and we see there are two values, web traffic and firewall logs. Okay, this is what your web traffic looks like. Okay, then we go to two data sets available. Initial triage. Start a basic search across the index using your custom source type, web traffic, using the following query. We are just going to copy paste because you are a little lazy to type. Okay, source type, web traffic. We are reviewing the web traffic logs, and after the search query, we got these things. Let's break down our result for a better understanding. Search query. This query retrieves all events from the main index that were tagged with the custom source type web traffic. This marks the beginning of the investigation. Time range. The time range is currently set to all time. In security analysis, this would be tightened because you have to do that because there will be more amount of logs as you increase the time. After the initial data loading timeline, this visual histogram shows the distribution of 17,172 events over time. Wow. The graph indicates the successful daily log volume followed by distinctive traffic spike, a period of high activity, likely the attack window. Okay. So this graph shows that there has been some high activity occurred in this time duration, right? That was 3 times. Okay, they have labeled the things. Selective fields. These are the fields currently chosen to be displayed in the summary column of the event list: host, source type. They represent basic metadata about the log file itself. These are the selected fields, and these are the interesting fields. This page lists all fields that Splunk has automatically extracted or manually added. Fields prefixed with hash are automatically generated by Splunk's time commands. The presence of user agent path and client IP confirms a successful parsing of web log structure, event details, and field extraction. This section shows the parsed details of a single event with extracted fields like user agent path, status, client IP, and more. This region. Now that we have an understanding of the Splunk layout and how to read logs in Splunk, let's continue our analysis of the logs. Visualizing the logs timeline, let's chart the total event count over time, group by day, to determine the number of events captured per day. This will help us identify the day that received an abnormal number of logs. The search query, they have given time chart span 1 day count. Okay. Copy time span like this. The above results are now showing the event logs captured per day. The above results are now showing the event logs captured per day. Okay, few events. Okay. We can also click on the visualization tab to examine the graph for a better representation as shown below. Visualization tab. Okay. We can append the reverse function to the end of the display, the result in descending order, showing the day with the maximum number of events at the beginning. Right. Search query, sort by count and reverse. Span 1 day count. Automated SQL injection. Web shell runner. Came from the same IP. Post. Where am I? Okay. Checked if it is check if it is able to get to the root user. Okay. Now this day there were maximum number of events 2267. There is a clear period of intense activity during which King Malhare launched his main attack phase. Now that we have examined the days with abnormal logs using the table and graph, let us use the same search query to examine various fields to hunt for suspicious values. We need to go back to the events tab to continue. Let's click on the user agent field in the left panel. As shown, it will show us the details about user agents captured so far. 11 user agent. Okay, SQL map, Havage, Go HTTP. See, Mozilla. These are valid user agents. We talked about user agent briefly in the last room as well. These are the agents found. Upon close examine, it becomes clear that apart from legitimate edge agents like Mozilla's variants, we are receiving large number of suspicious ones, which we will need to investigate further. First, we have client IP. The second field we will examine is client IP, which contains the IP address of the client accessing the web server. We can immediately see one particular IP address standing out, which we can investigate further. So first we saw the user agent, then we will see client IPs, and single IP has these many event logs. That is like 44% of the entire client IPs. Very suspicious. Okay. The third field is path. We will examine path, which contains a URI being requested and accessed by the client IPs. The result shows very clearly indicates some attacks worth investigating. We will now go to path and have index HTML, blog, static, shop, contact, and yeah, there has been SQL injection into this, I guess. Download file, etc, password. Because usual routes look like this. This is something unusual. I think that is what they're talking about. We know King Malhare's bunnies use scripts and tools, not standard browsers. Let's filter out standard traffic. Let's exclude common legitimate user agents. The following query will remove legitimate users from the result and only show the suspicious ones, which we will further investigate. We want web traffic without these legitimate user agents. We are going to put it here. And yes, we did. I did. There are so many requests. Okay. Then we will see client IP again. There is only one IP with these many count. Okay. The output reveals interesting results. By clicking on the client IP field, we can see a single IP address being responsible for all the suspicious user agents. That is the biggest red flag of an attack, or the biggest signal of an attack. Let's note that down for further investigation and fill in the redacted portions of the upcoming queries with that IP. Narrowing down suspicious IPs. In first we narrowed down the user agents, now we are going to narrow down the suspicious IP. Here are the scenarios we encountered. There's IP address constantly attempting to attack our servers. To narrow down on IP addresses that do not send requests from common desktop or mobile servers, we can use the following query. First, we remove the agents, then stats count by client IP, sort count, and head will be 5. Oh, okay. The result confirmed the IP used by Bandit Bunnies in the search query. The Hyphen in the sort count part will sort the result by count in reverse order. It's the same as using the reverse function. Let's pick this IP address and filter out to see what footprints of the activities are captured. Now we will trace the attack chain. Interesting. We will now focus on the selected attacker IP to trace their steps chronologically, confirming the use of multiple tools and payloads. Don't forget to replace redacted with the IP we noted down previously. First phase, reconnaissance, footprinting. We will start searching for the initial probing of exposed configuration files using the query below. Right now, what are we doing is we are filtering the web traffic with client IP this, where there has been some, we saw that special parameter, interesting parameters, right? So in that path was there. So we're checking if environment php info or .git was accessed, and we are to be given table time, path, user agent, and status. Okay, user agent, status, the status code that was sent, path, and timestamp codes. Enumeration, vulnerability testing. Yes, the first was reconnaissance. Search for common path traversal and open redirect vulnerabilities. We again have to replace the redacted with the IP. Output shows the attacker is trying to access. Let's update this. The output shows the resources the attacker is trying to access. Let's update the search query to get the count of resources requested by the attacker. This search query is filtering the part that contain either dot dot slash or the term redirect in it as shown below. This is done to look for footprints of path traverser attempts. Okay, we need to update it in search query to escape the characters like this. Hmm, evil site path. Okay. Quite interesting results. Reveals attempts to read the system files, showing the attacker moved beyond simple scanning to actively vulnerability testing. Then they carried out this SQL injection attack. Find the automated attack tool and its payload by using the query below. User and agent in SQL map or habit. And we will want table time and path and status in return. Hmm. Yeah, these were also the SQL injection queries. Okay. Our results confirm the use of SQL injection in specific attack strings like sleep 5, a 504 code, a 504 status code often confirms a successful time-based SQL attack. Okay, we have 504 over here, here, many places. Exfiltration attempts. Search for attempts to download large sensitive files. We can use the query below. And path in. Okay, we are checking if search for attempts to download large sensitive files, backups, or logs. We can use the query below. The results indicate the attacker was exploiting large chunks of compressed log using tools like curl, zgrab, and more. We can confirm the details about these connections in firewall logs. Ransomware staging and RCE. Requests for sensitive archives like logs.tar.js and /config indicate the attacker is gathering data for double extortion. In the logs, we identified some requests related to bunnylock and shell.php. Let's use the following query to see what those search queries are about. path in bunny lock bin shell.php empty table line. These were the paths. User agent Python request Ruby cgrab. The board is a skill can form a successful web shell. The attacker has gained full control over the web server and is also able to run commands. This type of attack is called remote code execution RCE. The execution of slash shell.php cmd is equals to bunny log bin indicates a ransomware like program executed on the server. Correlate outbound C2 communication. We pivot to search to the firewall logs using the compromised server IP as the source and attacker IP as the destination. Search query, source tab is now file logs, server IP is this, destination IP is what we will enter, and action is allowed. And so, like parameter, action parameter, not action is allowed. Protocol TCP, source IP this, destination IP this, C2 contact reason. The query proves the server immediately established an outbound connection to the attacker's C2 IP on the suspicious destination port. The action allowed the reason C2 contact. Okay, so we have a new term here called the C2 communication. C2 stands for command and control communication. It is something like this, where the attacker uses a C2 server to interact with the victim systems or server. So what happens over here is that when the malware is initially loaded into the system, it performs its basic tasks. But to further carry out its tasks, it waits for the attacker's guidance. So that is what C2 server over here is doing. It is usually used or hosted by them on a public cloud, and a very cheap provisioning they opt for, and they do that so that all of their traffic is merged with that of the general cloud traffic. Yeah, that was about the C2 communication. So when this type of connection was established, the permission was given. The query browser server immediately established an outbound connection to the attacker's C2 IP on the suspicious destination port. The action allowed and reason for C2 contact. Volume and data is filtrated. We can also use the sum function to calculate the sum of the bytes transferred using the bytes transfer field shown below. Splunk is quite interesting. Total bytes 126167. Conclusion. Identity found. The attacker was identified via the highest volume of malicious web traffic originating from the external IP intrusion vector. The attack followed a clear progression in the web logs. It followed the typical process that was reconnaissance, then exploitation, and doing the SQL injection part. Reconnaissance probes were initiated with via CURL and wget, looking for configuration files like .env and testing path traversal vulnerabilities. Exploitation, use of SQL map, user agents, and specific payloads. Sleep 5. It makes the terminal, or I think the server, sleep for 5 seconds. Confirmed the successful exploitation phase. Payload delivery, the action on objective was established. The final successful execution of the command cmd./bunny.binary.bin via the web shell. Then C2 confirmation, the pivot to the firewall logs proved the post-exploitation activity. The internal compromise server established an outbound C2 connection to the attacker's IP. What is the attacker's IP found attacking and compromising the web server? Which day was the peak traffic in the logs? I think 12 to 13 October. What is the count of habit user agents to run that query again? I'm going to go to user agent, go to habit, and there are 155. 155. No, found in the logs. It says 155. So, over here I'm only seeing for Havij there are 155 count, but over here in the video it says 993. So I'm just gonna go with that because it is giving me incorrect over here. I used the same query as him, but I did not get 993. In fact, I got 155. The path traversals, we did use that query. There were 88 and 90 traversals done by this IP. No, but these were the things that were. Just gonna refer to the video again. Here it says 658. Yes, he's seeing the same thing. My query is also same stat count by path. Okay, there he just used dot dot. And yes, then probably we will find it no. Probably there is some error or something like that. Yeah. Examine the firewall logs. How many bytes were transferred to the C2 server IP from the compromised web server? We're done. Let me quickly summarize what we have discussed in the room. First, the storyline said that the TPFC, the fictional company of the AoC, have undergone the ransomware attack. There has been a quick flash of this message: the 1000 HopSec coins for McSkidy or SOCMIS ends tonight. And these were the learning objectives where we learn about how to understand data from we will learn to understand how to investigate logs using Splunk, and we will use search processing language and conduct an investigation within Splunk to uncover key sites. Okay. First, we went into search and reporting, and then we used index is equals to mean to find out the two categories of data sets that are present, that is web traffic and the firewall logs. Then we first analyze using the web traffic data set, and we saw different parameters and different things that are present on the Splunk dashboard. And then we visualize the logs timeline. Then we found out that during a particular day, there was peak traffic reported. Then we used different search queries. Then we detected anomalies such as seeing unusual user agents. Then we found out the client IP, the most suspicious client IP that had made so many requests onto our server. Then we found out the paths that were accessed by the particular IP. Then we started filtering. First, we filtered First we filtered out the legitimate user agents, then we narrowed down the suspicious IPs, means we only counted the ones that made the most requests and listed the top 5, but we had the single IP that was the most suspicious one. Then we started with tracing the attack chain. First we found out about reconnaissance, that is footprinting. We saw which paths were accessed and tried to get the table time, path, user agent, and status. Then we went to the enumeration, that is vulnerability testing. Over there, we tried to filter out the logs by the particular client IP that we got and the path it traversed, and this was the results we got. We determined that it was an SQL injection attack because of the kind of path accessed. And also, we saw that they had come from user agents such as SQL Map and Havij. Then we saw about exfiltration attempts. The log files and backup files were accessed, and that was done using simple tools like curl and zgrab and wget. Then the ransomware staging and remote control execution. The sensitive files indicate attackers gathering data for double extortion. In the logs, we identified some requests related to bunny log, and so these sensitive files were accessed, and the shell script called bunnylog.bin was executed. You can see over here web shell runner. Okay. Then correlate outbound serial. Then finally the communication was established, and we found it out using firewall logs. Then volume data exfiltrated. In that we found out how many were allowed for the particular destination IP on our server. Then this was the final conclusion, and that was it.